All right, track one from Postcards from a Young Man. It's not war, just the end of love. Nicky Wire is here. It's been a while since we saw you. I think it's probably just over a year since Journal for Plague Lovers. Manic Street Preachers still seem to be an incredibly prolific band. There are still lots of songs to come. Did this album, this new record, come without too much of a fight?
It did, actually, because I think, luckily enough, because Journal was all based around Richey's wonderful lyrics. It gave me an opportunity to stockpile a lot of words, during that period. So I was writing and just being a bass player, so to speak, on the record, and came up with quite a few tunes as well. So I think really we started in September last year, and demoing, recording, mixing everything, and we got it out, all within a year. So we're happy with our kind of late season surge. I think a late career surge. The last 3 albums really since Send Away the Tigers. 4 years, 3 albums in 4 years.
That's not bad. Do you find songwriting a pleasure, or do you find it a pain? Obviously, as the weight of responsibility fell to you back in the day, did it come naturally to you to fully take control of writing the songs?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously the lyrics is me and Richey used to sit down and write words together at a desk, and then around Holy Bible I could see his lyrics was just so amazing that I let him just take control, and I chipped in with some stuff. But then obviously with Richey's disappearance, I had to find my own voice, really, and that's what gave birth to stuff like Design for Life and Tolerate. Much less internalized than Richey. I could never be as kind of as good as him, really, in the way in his genre, which was just unbelievably kind of, he consumed so much, so much culture, that I had to find a different voice.
I mean, you say that, of course, but then commercially, the songs that you wrote on your own were the biggest hits the band's probably ever had. Yeah,
I mean, it is a weird dichotomy. The one thing I would have, the biggest regret with Richey's disappearance is obviously very personal to a lot of people, but also just on a level of creativity, the fact, I wonder what we could have come up with lyrically together, because Motorcycle was me and him in a desk in Swansea Uni writing words together, which not many people do.
I view, and I don't know whether you agree with this, but I view Journal for Plague Lovers almost as a standalone record. I think the album that comes before Postcards from a Young Man is Send Away the Tigers.
Yes.
Really, would you agree, yeah?
Totally. This is the natural follow-up. I think Send Away was the album that just made us a band again, and it was a big comeback for us, just personally as well, because we fell in love with the idea of the band again after a few barren years. And I think this is it was slightly disposable, Send Away. I really love the record and I'm really proud of it, but this album, I think, Postcards, has more depth to it, probably.
Can a band lose confidence? Did Manic Street Preachers lose confidence prior to Send Away the Tigers?
Yeah, I think a band can lose confidence all the time. It's probably a good thing. If you don't, then you probably just, enter a malaise that you never get out of. I think you've got to be very self-critical of your band's career, otherwise you just drift into nothingness.
So what we're going to do over the next hour is play some tracks from the new record, Postcards from a Young Man. We're also going to talk about the old days, and you've come in with a list of some of the songs that you would like to hear. Shall we start with one of those, and what have you got?
I've just got to make sure they are 90s, because I'm doing it on the top of my head, but Scar Tissue, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Is that on the cusp?
Okay. I think we can get away with that. Why this one?
It's just a moment then when we realised what an amazing guitarist John Frusciante was. The solo is so subtle. There's not many notes going on, but every subtlety and every note aches with pain and melancholia. And I think it's the peak of the Chili's for me. It was hard for him to replicate this, and the video is brilliant. Just driving through the desert, all beat up and battered, and we've been fans right from way back, but this record just seemed to invent their own sound. It's like the quintessential Chili sound for me.
This is Absolute Radio with Nicky Wire. He's here, and we just played Red Hot Chili Peppers and Scar Tissue. Now, going back to this new album, Postcards from a Young Man, the reviews that I've read of this record say that actually it's probably the sibling record to Everything Must Go, and it seems in part that this album is strongly influenced by Everything Must Go.
Yeah, I remember saying to James, really, that out of the wreckage of the Holy Bible, came Everything Must Go, and sort of out of Journal for Plague Lovers, something just as euphoric and uplifting perhaps was the way to go. And it just seemed really natural that all the orchestration and all the gospel choirs, it was all done in our studio in Cardiff, all kind of locally sourced, like vegetables, and low carbon album it was, and it just felt really natural that we wanted to make the music quite escapist. I don't know if that sounds a bit silly, but it's just we wanted to take people away. The lyrics are still like the lyrics always will be, but I think when you hear for Design for Life, the initial feeling is, what an amazing piece of music. You don't necessarily get the working class, sarcasm or whatever in there. So I think that was the party line. When you started to write solely on your own, did you trying to write as if you were working with Richey, or did you specifically say, well, I've got to do this on my own now, I'm going to take my own influences and write the songs that I would have written? Yeah, I think the worst thing I would have done would be to be a caricature of him, to try and parody his kind of severe critique of society. So I just... whenever I've come close to doing that, I chuck the lyrics away because they're just embarrassing. Because I don't feel, it didn't feel as internalised and sort of confused as him. Do you have a book with all your lyrics in somewhere? I've got tons of books. I mean, it's like, if anyone's ever seen the documentary on Stanley Kubrick's Boxes, then mine's like that. I was thinking more of John Doe in Seven. Those just like thousands and thousands of books with the most incredible handwriting that you couldn't actually possibly read unless you were the person who wrote it. It is a bit of that, because it's all handwritten and it's a bit of typewriter. There's, nothing's on a disc anywhere. It's all... drives my wife mad. The Loft is just a shrine to Manic Street preachers. Let's go back to the debut. Let's go back to Generation Terrorists. How did the band get signed in the first place? What do you remember of those early days? I guess I'm talking late 80s, probably. Yeah, it was sort of 1990, starting getting in the press. And 91, sort of Heavenly, struck 92, Motown Junk. Sort of on the cusp, and then we signed to Columbia, Sony, wherever it was. We've been there so long, it's had about 4 different names. And there's a few record companies after us, and Rob Stringer, who's the A&R man, just convinced us. He fell for all our dreams, really. We were obviously wildly ambitious. What do you remember of those sessions, though? Did the record company keep a close eye on this very young, very volatile band? I mean, we're talking the glory days, you Ben. The good old days. We are talking 2 studios running at the same time. 2 different mixers, 13 weeks in a residential studio in Surrey. Fantastic. Now we know why there's no money left in the record industry. You spent it all in the 90s. We spent absolutely... it was amazing. Just the 4 of us just in the studio with Steve Brown, who produced the Cult, and Wham, which we were trying to mix the pop sensibility of Wham and the rock ethics of the Cult, and... it was a really magical time. Richey got absolutely addicted to the Sonic game on Sega Mega Drive. Mega Drive was the first leap forward, I think, in games. Yeah. And James was addicted to Spider-Man game. So yeah, we didn't do much work a lot of the time. But it was a brilliant period. I obviously want to play a track from the record, and rather than maybe Motorcycle Emptiness, which you get to hear a lot on the radio, I wanted to play Little Baby Nothing. I was just going to say that. So we're both singing from the same hymn sheet. It's just the start of our tradition of duets, which is we've kept from Tracy Lords to Kylie to Shirley Bassey to Nina to Ian McCulloch on the new record is something we're kind of really proud of. How did Tracy Lords happen? Because I believe that it was you were originally going for Kylie in the first place, but that didn't happen due to logistics and record company deals and all that kind of malarkey. I think it was just before Kylie was cool, and she didn't realise how many people kind of thought it'd be a good idea. But she sang it on stage with us like 3 years later. But I think Tracy Lords was our manager's idea. So he either had a vivid imagination or... an amazing video collection. One or the other. And I genuinely didn't know anything about it at all, And Richey did some research and he kind of thought lyrically it did fit. And but exploitation and however, because Richey wrote, I'd say, about 70% of these lyrics. And we wrote a bit together as well, but... and it's brilliant. She came over and she had the most fantastic fake fur coat on, which we wanted to steal off her, because that's all we were wearing. You must have been jealous as hell. Yeah, I think she was jealous of mine. Mine was from Warehouse, I think. All right, this is Little Baby Nothing from Generation Terrorists. We're talking 1992. This is Absolute Radio. Nicky Y is our guest. This
is Ben Jones. It is Absolute Radio. Nicky Wire is our guest, and we're sort of working our way through the 90s. I'm also going to be talking about the new record, Postcards from a Young Man. I'm thinking maybe we should play another track off your list of songs, and we'll see whether, again, this is another track that I would have gone for, should I be sat where you are.
Yeah, well, I'd really like to play something by Super Furry Animals, because they're one of my favourite bands generally. We played a lot with them in the early days. We were I guess we were the godfathers of the Welsh music scene at that point, and they exploded just with Hometown Unicorn and the Fuzzy Logic album in particular, I think. God Show Me Magic I'd like to play, because it's just sort of under 3 minutes, pure pop classic. And I think Griff is one of the great singers. He's just always... I think he's the Welsh Damon Albarn, you know. He can turn his hand to anything. I'd love to, get him to do a duet one day.
Is there a competitive streak amongst those big Welsh bands?
I mean, I'm just a generally competitive person. It just comes from my sporting background. I don't think it does the band any favours sometimes, if I'm being honest with you. I am excessively competitive. And then again, you look at the Beatles and the Stones, or Blur and Oasis, or Lennon and McCartney. Sometimes I think a bit of competition is healthy. But for me, it wasn't so much with Welsh bands. It was, with everyone.
All right, here's Super Furry Animals on Absolute Radio.
Absolute Radio 90s.
With Ben Jones.
Right, we're back on Absolute Radio with Nicky Wire. This is Ben Jones, and let's go to Everything Must Go. So, 1996, kind of, I guess, maybe just after the peak of Britpop.
Yes.
And I was thinking as I was scootering in today, as much as it was the height of Britpop, I've never really viewed Manic Street Preachers as a Britpop band. I wouldn't have even put you in that category. Would you agree?
No, I think we've been probably one of the successes and the kind of reasons why we lasted so long is we've never been part of any movement. It was Manchester when we started, then it was the kind of Suede sort of thing, and which morphed into Britpop. Seattle was going on, and we never kind of ticked any boxes. And we did ride the coattails, I have to say. We did mop up a few sales.
Nothing wrong with that.
I mean, the height of Britpop, if you like, when Girls and Boys was coming out, and definitely maybe when in number one, we were releasing the Holy Bible, so we stuck out like an absolute sore thumb, which I'm really glad about, But looking back, I do think, it was a pretty glorious period on the sly. I mean, there's some amazing bands who genuinely got big. Like the 60s, and there was pop rock bands that genuinely, all of a sudden, were playing stadiums and stuff. It was unbelievable.
It's actually weird, having done this show, Absolute Radio 90s, it's weird how many bands I'd forgotten were originated from the 1990s or had some amazing track, and you forget about that looking back now. Obviously, this record, Everything Must Go, released pretty much a year after Richey disappeared. Did you feel a sense that it was very much all eyes on you now, and how did the band deal with that pressure of releasing a record and, of course, the emotional stress?
I think recording it was all right, because we went to France with Mike Hedges for the first time to his huge chateau, and it was an amazing environment to make music. It was one of the old desks from Abbey Road. Pink Floyd had recorded. It was all wooden and it was rustic, and it was just tons of wine and tons of cheese and tons of ham. But obviously then when we had to tour it was the first time we were doing gigs without Richey properly, and there's a kind of hole there that's never been filled, really. It never felt as good in terms of the symmetrical wonderment of the band. There's always a gap there, really. So that was the tough part of it, really.
Do you listen much to the back catalogue, or are you one of those people that's always going forward, always looking at the next thing?
I think James and Sean are much more about listening to the future, whereas I am a kind of studious historian of our career. Just because I like to think, you can learn about all the mistakes and all the good points.
All right, choose me a track from Everything Must Go.
Well, I wouldn't mind hearing The Girl I Want to Be God, because it's not played much and his strings are just enormous. It's really euphoric. Richey wrote most of the words. I had to finish them off and sort of edit them together, I think, if I remember rightly. And it's got a real kind of, Phil Spector producing ABBA feel to it.
Absolute Radio 90s.
With Ben Jones.
This is Ben Jones, it is Absolute Radio, and Nicky Wire is still here, and you're a very happy man, very comfortable in your life and your success and your achievements. Therefore, is it hard to channel the rage and the anger that some people expect to get from Manic Street Preachers?
Not at all. It should be, but the kind of pettiness and the kind of rage, working class rage against injustice and prejudice and all those things, it's just never left us. It's become more controlled and more compassionate, but it's always there underneath, bubbling away from me like a volcano ready to explode.
Do you find that some people, when, I don't know, maybe they bump into you in Tesco's, they expect the character that they see on the telly or on stage, when actually, in reality, you're probably quite a bit different from that? Is the character of Nicky Wire vastly different from the real person sat here now?
I think it has to be to survive. I think, if you've got kids and, you're married and I'm living at home in Wales, you can't walk down Newport High Street with a giant ego, and a mini skirt and a pile of Urban Decay makeup on. It just doesn't work. And if you're taking the kids to school in the morning. But there are some, I think I've always liked that separation, because when you come to going on stage then, it feels like one of the greatest things on earth. It's still a night out, a Manics gig. I mean, for me, it's the only night out I get.
Hey, listen, you and me both, my friend. You and me both. Do you still enjoy touring? Obviously, you're going out on a massive world tour fairly soon. Do you look forward to that, or is that something where you think, oh, God, right, focus, get back in that zone, get ready to take all those things with me on tour and just pack up my life?
It is like that. It is, once the mindset is locked in, it is a fantastic experience. It's just getting into that mindset is the tough thing, thinking about all the TV you're going to miss and stuff, and walking the dog and what have you. So, but once it happens, that's, like I said, since Send Away the Tigers, I think it's been an absolute pleasure being in the group, really. And we've been to places we've never been before: Hong Kong and Singapore and Croatia and Latvia.
I mean, there can't be that many places that you haven't been to before.
There's not many left, no. But the fact they've come late in our career, it's really odd, actually. I don't know if it's because we were lazy when we were really big.
Let's talk about this new record, Postcards from a Young Man, and let's play another track from this. We've already done the first single, which is track 1. Choose me something else which you would like to maybe feature on the show. Some Kind of Nothingness, which is the duet with Ian McCulloch. I wrote the music for this one as well. There's 3 tracks on the album I wrote the music for, and I did about 8 demos of this song, 6 demos. I feel like I put more into this song than any song I ever have, lyrically and musically. I wrote the string arrangements from my guitar parts, and I got slightly cranky about it with everyone else, which I've never done before. But I was just seeking a perfection that was slightly unhealthy, and it was written as a duet, and obviously, naturally, the first idea was probably to think about Nina again. James, sort of the idea of using another man for a change, just clicked into our consciousness, and Ian McCulloch was then just seemed like the right thing. It was the first gig James and Sean ever went to, and Richey, the Ocean Rain Tour, Echo and the Bunnymen. So to have Ian McCulloch in our studio singing one of our songs after kind of idolising him growing up, it was just a real magical moment. 2008, you won the Lifetime Achievement NME Award. I've always been keen to ask a band or an artist who gets an award like that, how does it make you feel? Is it an honour, or does it make you feel old?
The NME one was special because we were children of the NME growing up. And as the people who've won that award are pretty, some of I think is New Order and Primal Scream and The Clash and The Cure. So it is kind of bands you're quite comfortable being associated with. Some of them, that's the only sort of lifetime one we've had. I felt like we kind of deserved it because, the NME was the first. It was the Holy Grail was to get on the cover of the NME and to get on top of the Pops. That's how we thought we could conquer the world. Through those 2 mediums. So it didn't really make me feel old, that one.
And what is your opinion of some of the new bands kicking around at the moment? Because I know you've always, you've said in the past you've been disappointed with the number of new bands who have very little or nothing to say about the world. But isn't that just the nature, really, of what they do? They make pop music, a lot of these bands.
To be honest, I think it's kind of a golden era of, I guess you call it urban pop, whatever. Some of it's tough and gritty, and some of it's pure pop. I actually got no problem with that. It's just the kind of guitar bands who say nothing that really. It is in our tradition, from Pete Townsend to the Pistols to the Clash to Billy Bragg, wherever, to ourselves. There are especially in these times of desperate recession, I'm amazed that no one gets inspired to write anything. I just can't. I find it staggering, really.
Give me a song from your list, one final track.
I wouldn't mind playing Some Might Say by Oasis, really, because we toured with them a lot at this period in America, in the UK, and it was a relief in some ways because they were the soap opera, you know. It was sort of post-Richey for us, and I think Some Might Say is just a glorious record. I've always had this vision on Top of the Pops of Noel just holding his guitar up in the air as if he's just scored a hat-trick at Main Road, you know, like we're number one. It just felt like a breakthrough, just like when the Roses and the Mondays were on Top of the Pops together, that famous episode. And it's just a madly recorded record. It's just so many guitars on it. So it's actually really slow, but it's the genius of Oasis is that they make slow records, but you never feel they're too plodding, and the vocals are just fantastic.
It's Oasis and Some Might Say, as chosen by Nicky Wire from the Manic Street Preachers, who is our guest this evening. And you've probably seen these glowing reviews for this new album, Postcards from a Young Man. Bands that have been around for as long as you guys have shouldn't really have the music press on their side these days, should they?
I think it's just the effort we put in. The kind of words like love and passion, which we were very wary of a long time ago, the kind of Bruce Springsteen thing, but we just are dedicated to our art, and because of the backstory, you know, there's so much around us, and, you know, what we've said and what we've done, and triumph and tragedy. But, you know, we do realise that if you haven't got the songs, you're never going to last as long as we have. And just put so much, you know, what is it, 90% perspiration and 10% inspiration.
We played the first track from the record, and give me something else to play as well. A lot of people saying A Billion Balconies Facing the Sun is standout track.
It's the last sort of 4 songs of the album, 3 or 4 songs, it gets slightly more political towards the end. Billion Balconies Facing the Sun features Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses on bass. Amazing bass track. He just phoned us up and said, you know, I'm going to get my rig out. I recorded Appetite for Destruction just for you guys, which we were on our knees, you know. He's the sweetest guy in rock and roll. Did a brilliant track, and it's kind of inspired by J.G. Ballard and John Gray, and it sounds like Fleetwood Mac played by The Clash.
Wow. Well, let's hear this. Good luck with the rest of the album. Good luck with the tour, and always nice to see you here at One Golden Square. Nicky, thank you for your time.
Cheers, Ben. Thanks a lot.